What's this like for you to be in the Super Bowl and get that vindication after so many years of teams giving up on you and writing you off?
I think it doesn't really come down to that for me. It's always just been about putting in the hard work every single day. Sometimes hard work and all the dedication and hours I've put in the off season, during the season, it leads to this moment, and that's kind of the mindset I have and really the mindset I've had my entire career.
Sam over here to your left.
Yeah.
After your time in San Francisco here, you've talked a lot about what that meant to you. But when you went looking for your next stops, how important was it for you in Minnesota and Seattle to find a system and coaches that were similar to what you did here?
Yeah, I think, being able to have similar systems throughout, your entire career, especially, ones that you kind of see fit, and especially with the type of skill players we have, the offensive line we have, it just fits really well with all of our skill sets. And, that was a very important piece to me in deciding kind of in my free agency where I wanted to go. But again, like I always say, Coach McDonald and the defense had a lot to do with my decision as well.
Hi, Sam, front row on your right. Your teammate Cooper Kupp yesterday spoke about how quickly the NFL can chew up and spit out a quarterback who doesn't perform up to the standards people place on them early in their career, and how impressive it was that you came through your early trials. I was wondering if you could speak about that as a broader phenomenon in the NFL and also from the perspective of your journey when you're about to play in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, you see examples of that, all around the league and in the past. Just guys maybe not having as much success as, they feel like they should have had, or maybe the media thinks that they should have had right out of college. But I think the biggest thing is to just, believe in yourself. I think that's really what it comes down to, is as long as I've always believed in myself and I've always had confidence in myself to do my job. And I learned a ton from the mistakes that I made early on in my career. And I feel like that kind of mindset has kind of gotten me to this point.
Sam, to your left, over here. In terms of Cooper Kupp and just the veteran presence he provides, how would you just describe how valuable he's been to your offense overall, and how much you guys are maybe leaning on his experience getting to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Coop and, what he's meant to our offense, not only our offense, but our entire team. The mindset that he has, the way he leads by example. But if he does say things, he's one of those guys where the entire room is dead silent, and they're super focused on what he's saying, because we know that he doesn't waste his breath. He's always going to be able to say something very, very mindful. And for us, it's speaking for the players, but also the coaches. I feel like he's had a huge impact on all of us in that building, and we have a ton to thank for Coop and kind of what he's brought to all of us here in Seattle.
Being here, being here, do you ever reflect on those early stages in New York, and what did you take from that experience?
Yeah, I think just learning how to flush bad plays, flush bad games. Always at the end of the day, no matter if I had a bad game or a bad rep or a bad series of plays, I always was able to wake up the next day and be able to move on. And I think that was something that I always learned. And I feel like as a young player too, early in my career, I was really hard on myself. After a bad rep or a bad practice, I would let it kind of affect my attitude a little bit. And I think just being able to have a great attitude all the time and kind of have that, all right, that happens. It's football. We're not always going to be perfect. I think, Jerry Rice has a quote, I'm just going to paraphrase it, but he never had a perfect practice or a perfect game, and that's kind of the mindset that I've always had, after my first few years in the NFL was it's not always going to be perfect. That's why everybody loves this game, and people call it some of the best reality TV there is, because, nothing's always perfect, and it's about how can you move on from mistakes to continue to better the team and better yourself. And that's how I've kind of had that mindset, and I feel like I learned a ton from my early years with that.
Sam, to your left along the wall
Yeah.
here, in talking to a couple of your coaches, they feel like Drew Lock, is kind of the glue a little bit in that quarterback room, and he's pushed you a lot just kind of mentally this season. What have you seen from him kind of in that regard, and does his journey, do you feel like, mirror yours in some way of what it could be?
No doubt. I think, Drew is one of the more talented guys I've been around and throwing the football. Me and Drew go way back. We were roommates at the Army All-American game, and we knew each other from the Elite 11 camp and just being in the same recruiting class. So, just being able to spend time again with Drew and reconnect and just, just how close he brings everybody. He's just such a great presence to have in the locker room and in the quarterback room especially. And he's so smart. He's going to bring up things that I don't think about, that the coaches don't think about. He's a brilliant guy to be around. And again, like I said, he's super talented. So I know whenever he does get an opportunity, he's going to shine.
Sam, second row to your right. You've obviously been to a Super Bowl in a backup capacity before. What did that process teach you about handling this week in a starter capacity?
Yeah, I learned a ton. I think the biggest thing is just trying to keep the routine the same. And that was something that I was able to ask Brock a little bit about during that process of kind of, are you feeling it? Or are you a little tired? And he said, no, I take it one step at a time, one day at a time, and do the whole media and do, all my obligations and everything I need to do, but continue to keep the routine the same. And I think the biggest thing too is early in the week, like these last couple days, I was able to get a lot of sleep. And I think that's huge because as you get closer to the game, nerves and just your mind might start thinking about the game and things that can happen. And, you're going to bed a little later, you got to wake up earlier. So I think just, getting as much sleep as I possibly could these last couple of days, which I did, is going to help me later on in the week.
Sam, to your left, the resurgence in the run game in recent weeks, how has that affected your performance and the overall offenses?
Yeah, I think, the way that our offensive line and our receivers, our tight ends, and our running backs have been able to communicate with each other and grow with that chemistry has only helped us a ton in the run game. And, we're going to continue to meet with each other. We meet with each other once a week on run game stuff just as players and get guys communicating in the room on certain looks that we see from the defense. And, it's just great. It's great to hear the guys communicating and gelling with each other, messing around with each other in the hallways and stuff like that in the hotel. There's a great chemistry going on, and I think that has a lot to do with kind of our success that we've been having in the run game, in the last few weeks.
Sam here on the right. You said earlier in the week, I believe it was last week, that going against this defense, it made you guys better as an offense. Your defense, the Seahawks,
right.
That is. What about that unit was so difficult for you guys to go against all year long, and how has that kind of played out in your opinion during the regular season? What made that unit so good?
Yeah, I think it's a few things, right? I think it's Coach Mike and the scheme, how the players play in that scheme, and how smart our guys are. Like the football IQ that our defensive players have. They understand in certain coverages, all right, like we might not be able to, hold our shell, as much as we can. We need to get to our spots, but in certain pressures, and maybe it's a third down, or maybe like a short yardage type situation, we're able to hold our shell a little bit longer and wait till they snap the ball. So just those little things. And, there's just so many smart players on that defense, and I think that's what makes it the toughest is how smart they are and understanding just the little nuances that come with playing defenses and also what the quarterback's looking for. I feel like they're very smart with what we're looking for as a quarterback and the center as well with protection. So, yeah, they just do a great job, and they make it really hard on an offense.
Hey, Sam, back right. Mike was talking a lot about your resilience and that being part of the ability to overcome some of those early season turnovers. Is there anything technical, though, that you can speak to that changed, whether it was with you or the offense, in the later stages of the season?
Where are you? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, back here.
Oh, gotcha. Hey, what's up? I think, the biggest thing is, for me as a quarterback, just understanding situations. The first and second down stuff, being able to understand, like, okay, why are we calling this play? Where my checkdowns are at. Is it a certain protection where, they might eat up the back and the back might not be able to get out, and I got to, maybe throw it to a receiver or just throw it away over his head, or is the back going to be able to get out and I can look for him a little bit quicker on a check down. And then when it comes to third down, being able to, get through my progression, understand why we're calling the play, if I do get out and scramble and I can find someone open, great. If not, that's kind of the benefit of having a great defense. Is I've always felt like this year, especially the latter half of the season, like I always felt like I never really had to force anything, and that's a big key for me as a quarterback, and a kind of a security blanket almost. Like I can feel really confident in just moving on to the next play and letting our special teams and our defense go to work, understanding that we just got to protect the football at all costs, and being able to move on as a quarterback from there.
Hi, Sam, back left.
Gotcha.
Right here.
Yep.
Frank Gore might be elected to the Hall of Fame this week. You were teammates with him in 2020. I was hoping you could reflect on what he might have brought to you as a young player, and then just quick side note, tying back here to San Francisco or Santa Clara. You're going to be using the 49ers locker room. Mm-hmm. Have you put in a request to be in the same spot there in the corner that you were in 2023?
I haven't. I haven't put in that request. That might be a good idea, though. Get some familiarity there. It was a great spot, too. It was like back corner. I had nothing on the left side. So it was a great spot. I can put my backpack there and be really comfortable. So I know EK and the equipment guys here in Seattle do a great job of giving me some space. So shout out those guys. But, and then in regards to Frank, man, he's just special. He's one of those guys that you can tell right off the bat, right when you meet him, just how comfortable he is in his own skin, how confident he is as a football player. And that's what makes him so great. And again, he's such a smart guy. Just the way that he talks about football, he does it all. He does a great job, obviously, in the run game, pass protection, running routes. He's one of a kind. Definitely, even at the age and towards the end of his career when I was playing with him, I still felt like he had a ton of juice, and that's someone that I'll always remember playing with and sharing those memories with in the locker room.
To your right front here, Sam, against
Yep.
the wall. Back to what you said about the Jets and early in your career, with the attitude change, what was the impetus for that? Who or what led you to change your mindset on that whole?
I think it was just me, just to be honest, just not being too hard on myself. And again, I think just hearing stories about guys, just being able to move on. And like I said, that story with Jerry Rice, just like you're never going to have a perfect day out there. And I think once you understand that, truly understand that, you can go out there and just play free. And I think that really unlocked something for me mentally. And it just allowed me to play good football and be okay with, things that happen out there. Obviously, you want to play your best. There is a fine line of, you want to be hard on yourself, but I think you don't want to be hard on yourself in the moment. And you can be harder on yourself without getting like mad at yourself, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's an attitude that I definitely learned, as I've gotten a little bit older and experienced in this league. I just heard about it. I think one day I just heard about it, and it kind of came up. I think maybe I heard about it in college, and then I kind of remembered it, and then heard about some guys who took practice. You obviously want to practice really hard, but you understand that nothing's going to go perfect, and that's why we play this great game. I think it'd be kind of a boring game if you didn't make mistakes out there and you didn't learn anything. So. That's why I play football, and that's why I love this game.
Hey, Sam, front row on the left, your weekly oblique question here. First one, how close do you feel like you are to being back to normal? And then as you've played through that injury, athletes in other sports sometimes talk about how when you're able to play through an injury, it can simplify things and maybe get you to play within yourself. Obviously, you're letting it rip and all that, but do you feel like that has applied to the way you've dealt with that injury at all?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it feels really good. Definitely the time off has helped a little bit. But, yeah, I think, I'm always just going to take it one step at a time. Do my rehab, do everything I need to do to make sure it feels great going into practice and going into the game, obviously on Sunday. But yeah, it feels great, and but again, it's just one thing to add to the routine, and I think making sure I keep the routine the same as I would if we were in Seattle, just practicing on a day-to-day basis here in the hotel is going to be very important this week.
Hey Sam, over here. Going back to your offensive line, I mean, they overcame some injuries. Can you just talk about the character of that unit? Obviously, you talked about it in terms of their ability in the run game and the pass game. What can you say about the character of that unit?
Yeah, they're unbelievable guys. I think that's the biggest thing, and like I always mention, their chemistry that they've had, just being able to mess around with each other, honestly, and because again, like, this is a kid's game. We're playing football that we've all played since we were 9, 10 years old. So I think remembering that and just having a good time with each other, because this is 20-something weeks we've been playing together. So if you're not clowning around with each other, having fun in the locker room and in the hotel, like, what are we even doing here? So I think that's something that our guys do a really good job of kind of remembering and understanding the why of why we play this game. But our offensive line they've always been amazing, and they understand while we can mess around and have fun with each other, they know when to lock in and understand their job and their assignment. But yeah, it's always fun to go play with those guys.
Sam,
Hi, Sam. Can you paint the picture for us of your meetings with Cooper Kupp in the morning, and also what's one of the most memorable moments you've had, or a conversation that you and Cooper have had that has helped in the week later on?
Yeah, I think it's been great just to kind of see just our routine, right? I mean, because when I show up at the facility, I feel like me and Cooper are always kind of the first ones to get there. Besides Ty Okada and Pat O'Connell, they're always there at like 5:30, which again, they're there at 5:30 and then they sit down at breakfast for 45 minutes. So never really understood that. But and then for Coop, like he's always beat me in the facility, especially early on in the season. And then towards the back half of the season, sometimes I'll beat him in, and I know he's spending a lot of time with his family in the morning, waking up, drinking some coffee. So whenever I get there before him, I make sure to, let him know about that. But just, I guess that's the best part about it, just the banter that we share together, in the mornings. That's what I look forward to the most. Obviously, the football stuff is great, but just the relationship that we've been able to continue to have throughout the season, and to see how it has grown has been the best part about those mornings with Coop.
Yeah, hey, Sam. Game day question on this Patriots defense. Super stingy, great against the run. What challenges do they present for you? What kind of a chess match are you anticipating?
Yeah, again, just, a great defense, great scheme. We understand kind of, what they might bring. They do a lot of different things personnel-wise. They've always done a great job of that throughout the season. So we got to be ready for all of that. And then, like I always say, especially with this team, like, they have great players. You can have great scheme, but if your players don't make it come to life, that it doesn't do you any good as a defense. So they do a great job, their players do, of making their scheme come to life on the back end, being able to show different coverages and get out of it and pressure and do all these things coverage-wise. So they do a great job. Their backers are great, and then obviously their defensive line is one of the top defensive lines, in my opinion, in the NFL. And truthfully, I don't know if they get enough love, their defensive line, for how good they've been all year. But yeah, it's a really good defense, and something we're obviously going to continue to prepare for. But we'll be ready by the time Sunday comes around. Thanks, guys.